In my review of Command & Conquer, I called it a genre-defining work of art. Where'd you go from that? In 1996, Westwood Studios attempted to build upon their undeniable success with a sequel/prequel to Command & Conquer, Red Alert. In the world of film, sequels are generally a poor imitation of the original. However, video games rarely fall into that trap, with sequels regularly building on a successful idea and becoming a more polished end product the second time round. Of course, the video game industry does follow some tropes of Hollywood and will churn out sequel after sequel until the concept has worn out its welcome, and some would argue that the Command & Conquer series falls into that trap. But now we're getting ahead of ourselves. What we're focusing on today is Red Alert, and whether or not it was a worthy successor to one of the defining games of a generation. Well, in this first aspect, Red Alert certainly meets the mark. A crazy B-movie style plot is introduced to us, and it's just so exquisitely simple, yet confoundingly weird. The year is 1946 in Trinity, New Mexico, and we are introduced to a man that you may have heard of, Albert Einstein. Having just witnessed the horrors of the Second World War, Einstein is determined to do something to help all those who have suffered. And what's the obvious solution? Why, he invents a time machine, travels back in time to 1924 and removes Hitler from existence. Because obviously, why didn't I think to do that? His young assistant is overjoyed. Hitler is gone, the war never happened, peace in our time. Except, no. In this new timeline, we see the Allies in the West, which now includes Germany, and the Soviet Union in the East begin to square off with one another. And so there you have it. Einstein attempts to avert the Second World War and accidentally sets up a slightly later but far worse version of World War II, one which sees the Allies and the Soviets wage a bloody war for the fate of Europe. The change in timeline didn't only alter the combatants of World War II, but also the weapons that would be used to fight. The unit roster of Red Alert is a bizarre mix of standard 20th century weaponry with a few ahistorical oddities thrown in there for good measure. I think their reasoning is that without World War II taking everyone's attention, scientists were able to focus on other projects, creating an array of weird and wacky weapons. My personal favourite being the weaponised version of Nikola Tesla's Tesla coil. What, in real life, was a simple resonator of electricity, in Red Alert is a base defence capable of frying infantry and ripping apart armour with bolts of lightning. But why did I refer to Red Alert as a sequel/prequel earlier? Well, that's a complicated question with a simple answer. Red Alert was certainly meant to be a prequel to Command & Conquer initially. During the Allied campaign, there is a definite reference to GDI as General von Essling talks about the UN creating a united military of all its member states in order to tackle the Soviets and any other future threats. At the climax of the Soviet campaign, we are told that the Brotherhood of Nod has members among the upper echelons of the Soviet Union, and throughout the campaign we can see... Wait, is that Cain? Yeah, that's Cain! Turns out he's immortal. Might even be the biblical Cain from the Cain and Abel story. I'll get to that another time. But then, in 2000, we would get Red Alert 2, and in 2008, we'd get the third installment of the Red Alert series. This contradicts the idea that Red Alert would lead into the narrative of the original Command & Conquer. So what gives? Well, there are a variety of complex fan theories about more alternate timelines and universes, but as I said, the answer is simple. Money. Red Alert was so incredibly successful that they wanted to go back to that well 2 more times. It requires some serious Orwellian doublethink to understand where Red Alert stands story-wise. It is at once a prequel to Command & Conquer, while simultaneously being the origin of a new, canonically separate game universe. Hope that clears everything up. Red Alert follows much the same pattern as its predecessor. Build a base, collect resources, build up an army, destroy enemies. Simple. This time round, your harvesters collect iron ore, which is scattered around the map in fields. Why are there fields of iron ore scattered around the map? That's a very good question. Moving on, there are some instances of the old rage-inducing game mechanics. The opening of the final level of the Allied campaign is just plain stupid. We are told in our mission brief about how this is the final push. We're about to finish off the Soviet menace, and we are provided with Agent Tanya, the Allies' elite commando unit, and 2 thieves who can steal money from ore silos. That's it. After the mission begins, you have a matter of seconds to move Agent Tanya away from a group of explosive barrels that just happens to be lying around, or she will be incinerated by them as they are shot and they go boom. I don't get why we are given a mission-failing obstacle to overcome within seconds of starting the level, or why, given the magnitude of this mission, the Allies really seem to be half-arsing their logistics on this one. If you make it through the barrel encounter, Tanya has to take down an entire base single-handedly before we receive a pitiful amount of reinforcement with which we can establish a base. It just seems like a weird and nonsensical way to artificially inflate the difficulty. That being said, these frustrations are few and far between, and Red Alert takes what came before and improves on it in almost every conceivable way. The awkward pathfinding is not gone entirely, but much better. The missions without base building are so much better designed and engaging. I rarely got the frustrating feeling of failing due to sheer bad luck, and the amazing variety of unit types and playstyles between each faction is incredible. The Allies feel like they have a much lighter, faster playstyle, as opposed to the sheer weight of arms and armour on display with the Soviets. New additions include units such as the 2 Soviet planes, the Yak and later the MiG, attack dogs and medics amongst many others. But for me, the best new addition is that of naval combat. Yeah, there were the GDI attack boats and the landing transports in the original, but you never directly controlled these units. In Red Alert, control of the seas can be just as important as the land. The Allies use ships such as the gunboat, the destroyer and the cruiser, whereas the Soviets counter this with their submarines. I really did enjoy the extra layer it added in terms of tactics, as you have a far greater range of movement and the ability to attack from the sea if you control the waters on any given map. My only gripe with this is that the Soviets have no naval units capable of firing at targets on the land, so the advantages of naval supremacy is heavily weighted towards the Allies, whose cruisers will really ruin your day if left to open fire on your base unopposed. The expansion pack Retaliation would add a new missile subunit which could fire on land-based targets, but in the base game, the Soviets get nothing. All in all, Red Alert simply builds on everything that came before. The combat is better, the programming is better, and the missions are far more varied with important secondary objectives that must be completed or risk mission failure. Sometimes I feel that these secondary objectives could be a little better signposted, as one time I spent nearly an hour securing my position and grinding down the enemy before assaulting their main base, only to fail because I didn't see the transport vehicle that I had been sent to destroy did a runner and escaped. What's worse is that modern games have me spoilt with their abundance of autosaving. With Red Alert, no such luck. I had to start the mission all over again. However, little frustrations like that aside, Red Alert's gameplay is masterful. Do you hear that? That is Hellmarch, the greatest piece of video game music ever made, and I will fight you if you say different. Just like with the gameplay, everything about Red Alert's presentation is an improvement on its predecessor. The soundtrack is banger after banger. The sound design in every way is amazing. It's far more varied than Command & Conquer, with certain unit types such as the engineer and the medic getting their own voiceover, with even the generic units getting faction-specific voices. The Russian "acknowledged" will get stuck in your head, as I found myself using it in day-to-day conversation as I dove into the game. Once again, the mission briefings are excellent. You still get that amazing feeling of being sucked into the game world and being so personally involved as the characters on screen talk directly to you. The Allied characters are great, but the best campaign is undoubtedly the Soviet campaign. As the Soviet commander, you are met with a cast of characters headed up by none other than Joseph Stalin. Red Alert does not hold back in this regard, and Stalin is presented as cold and calculating in one moment, and an insane homicidal maniac in another. This really was my first exposure to Stalin as a child, and this game can be credited for igniting my passion for history, even if it is ridiculous alternate history. Like I said when talking about Command & Conquer, it would be ridiculous to say that the game's graphics are mind-blowing to this day, but for the time, Red Alert was graphically strong. Once again, I'm still amused by the animation of the Tesla coil frying infantry to a crisp. The amazing presentation of Red Alert takes it to a level of near perfection. The story and unit types present in Red Alert could easily have allowed it to become silly and cartoonish, but the soundtrack, which can be both fast-paced and heavy at times, while being dark and sombre at others, along with the dark tone taken with the story and cutscenes, lend a level of seriousness to this game. I think that Red Alert is about as dark and as gritty as Command & Conquer gets. We see people brutally killed in a variety of ways on screen, and are presented with missions in which civilians are deliberately targeted. Yes, it is silly in places, but it doesn't let that silliness run away from it, and Red Alert toes the line between serious and absurd brilliantly. Red Alert was undoubtedly the game of my early childhood. I loved this game, and so did a core group of my friends at school, and it has stuck with me for over 24 years. Yes, Command & Conquer is a very strong game, but I didn't keep going back over and over to C&C the way that I did to Red Alert. So how do I rate it? The premise, pros, an excellent alternate history concept, and an intriguing and dark story. The cons, Red Alert's success ensured that its prequel threads went nowhere. Gameplay, an improvement on an already excellent foundation. And new additions like naval combat and improved air forces make Red Alert even deeper tactically. Cons, some frustrating gameplay mechanics and bugs are still present. Presentation, pros, a bizarre yet dark tone is set with the excellent cutscenes and mission briefs. An amazing soundtrack, and graphically very strong for its time. The cons, once again, no, I'm not sorry. So, is Red Alert the perfect strategy game? No, but it's so close to being one. I toyed with the idea of a 10 out of 10 rating, because if I'm waiting for a game to be perfect before giving a 10, I'll never give one. But I just think the frustrating gameplay elements within Red Alert are just pervasive enough to mean that I couldn't give it the perfect score. In every other way, it is close to gaming perfection, and it is a game that stuck with me for the majority of my life. Playing this game again with the 2020 remaster has been an absolute joy, and I have no problem in giving Command & Conquer Red Alert a 9 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. What did you think of Red Alert? Did you play it back in the day? Have you checked out the remaster? Sound off in the comments below and tell me which games should get the classic review treatment in future. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I'm Strategy Tom, and I'll see you next time.